Hi, everybody. Today is Tuesday, May 10th. Before I get started with our lesson today, a couple reminders. First of all, submit your one chapter from A Feast for Decomposers homework assignment to Schoology. Remember, use your Foursquare button on GoodNotes. Select only the article that you chose to read. We all read the introduction. Do not send me the introduction. Do not send me the entire article packet. Just submit only the article that you read and only those pages. Also, just as a reminder, make sure that you have written a summary for each paragraph before you submit it. If you just read it and highlighted it, don't turn that in. If you still need to finish it, go ahead and do that right now and then come back to this video. Okay, before we start with our lesson for today, let me take you guys back. Log into Amplify, pause this video, and then come back when you're ready. Okay, you guys should be in Amplify right now. I want you to go to lesson 1.6, examining data from the biodome. And actually, sorry, I'm going to ask you to do something else. I want you to go to Schoology and check your grade for 164. Some of you guys were gone that day. You had a track meet. There's quite a few of you guys that turned something in, but it's inaccurate. There's some kind of, you're missing some information or you need to do some kind of a revision. So just to remind you, this was the assignment from last Friday. You had your model for photosynthesis that populated here, and then you were supposed to use the evidence that we got from our colleague, the graph, and I'm being vague on purpose. I'm not telling you what that was in case that's part of the thing that you missed. But you go back to 163 and you had the graph, you had that reasoning tool that you were supposed to think about, what evidence are you using to support a claim, what key concept supports that evidence, and ultimately what claim did you choose? And then that's what you were supposed to write here. So look at your grade. If you have a 10 out of 10, then you're fine. You can continue on with this video. If you don't have a 10 out of 10, then please check the comments for instructions to revise. Stop the video right now. Go back and do that revision. And then will you please email me letting me know that you revised it so I can go back in and check it, make sure you're good for photosynthesis before you move on to cellular respiration. All right, so if you are moving on with the video, that means that you got a 10 out of 10 on that assignment. You're ready to move on. Let's go ahead and start with our warm-up. And the warm-up shows this graphic that we've had for cellular respiration. It says, in A Feast for Decomposers, you read a bit about cellular respiration. Now look carefully at this diagram and write what you think it shows about cellular respiration. It's a little vague, and it's vague on purpose because it's not trying to tell you what you should know. It's trying to see, the purpose of this question is to assess what you do know about cellular respiration. So take a minute. This answer might be a little bit longer, and that's okay. Talk to me about what you know about cellular respiration based on this graphic. When you're finished, hand it in and start the video again. All right, so you guys handed in that explanation. You're going to actually see that a little bit later on in the lesson. But for right now, we're going to be in activity number 2, observing cellular respiration. Let's go ahead and look at screen number 1. Now, we've been investigating how carbon dioxide gets into the air so that we can figure out why there was less and less of it in the biodome. The experiment in the video that we watched yesterday showed that there was evidence that the producer and the consumer, remember there was the Elodia plant and there was the snail, that they both gave off carbon dioxide. And then you guys read articles in the packet, A Feast for Decomposers, and that indicated that decomposers also give off carbon dioxide. So if you think about it, you know that if I ask you what organisms or what part of the ecosystem does cellular respiration occur, you would say producers, consumers, and decomposers. The word decomposer is, it just means an organism that gets ESMs, such as glucose, by breaking down dead matter. What are some examples of decomposers from the articles that you read? Well, you guys read about worms, termites, mushrooms. Mushrooms are a type of fungi, but there are fungi of all various types in those articles that you read about. There's also soil bacteria. Mold is a type of decomposer. There's aquatic bacteria, which is pretty interesting when you think about all the marine life, the aquatic life that dies and has to get broken down somehow. So there's bacteria in the water, and there's also small insects. So now that we know which organisms give off carbon dioxide, and again, they are producers, consumers, and decomposers, we need to figure out how it happens. So our investigation question is, how do organisms give off carbon dioxide? So obviously we know that the producers, consumers, and decomposers all give off carbon dioxide, and that ends up in the abiotic matter of an ecosystem, and it's usually in the air. But what I'm asking you guys to really make sure that when you leave class today that you're able to answer is, how is this happening? Okay? So today you're going to use the sim to investigate our question. You're going to compare the diagram from the warm-up with the ones that you see when you press the view cell for each organism in the sim. So if you remember, we did something really similar to this with photosynthesis, where we compared what we saw going on in the chloroplast to the graphic that we saw, and we talked about how it was similar and how it was different, what's going on. You're going to do the same thing to the mitochondria, with the mitochondria in the sim, and compare that to the graphic of cellular respiration that you guys wrote about in the warm-up. Okay, I'm going to warn you. My dog just laid down next to me. She gets very jealous when she hears me talking, and she might start like sniffing at the computer. So we'll see how long this lasts. I might kick her off the bed. All right. Let's go ahead and go into activity number 2. You're in screen number 2. And your directions say to work with a partner. I would prefer that you guys work on your own today since I'm not there. You're going to go ahead and observe the sim. And you're going to use what you see when you press the view cell along with the diagram below on screen 2 to learn more about cellular respiration. So when you press the view cell, do that not just only for producers. Look, it says right here, press the view cell for all the different organisms, and then compare the sim model to the model that you saw in the warm-up. All right, so let's do that really quickly. You guys are going to go to your sim on your homepage, and I'm going to click my link right here. So let's go ahead and open up our sim. And once you're in, you're going to go ahead and push play so we can see it moving. And I'm going to zoom in here so you guys can see a better look. Now, I'm not going to do everything for you, but remember, we identified that cellular respiration takes place in producers, consumers, both of those, and decomposers. So go ahead and go into the view cell of all 4 of these organisms to see what's going on in the mitochondria. I'll show you what it looks like in the producer. So we see in the producer, obviously, the chloroplast. Now remember, chloroplast is where photosynthesis takes place. That's not what we're looking at. We're here to look at the mitochondria. Okay? Mitochondria, you're going to see that oxygen and ESM go in to the mitochondria, and water and carbon dioxide go out. Do you hear my dog? Okay, so let's go ahead and exit out, and I want you guys to stop the video. I want you to view the cell for the consumer and the secondary consumer and the decomposer and see if there's anything that's different in the mitochondria of those organisms. Go ahead and do that now. Okay, I'm hoping you guys took a minute to look at those and you're not just letting the video play. Hopefully, let's just take a look at the consumer. the first one. When you look at the consumer, you see that, first of all, there is no chloroplast. Remember, I told you photosynthesis only occurs in producers. So we see this mitochondria, and the mitochondria is working really hard. We've got oxygen and carbon or ESMs going in, and we have water and carbon dioxide coming out. And if you looked at all of the other ones, the secondary consumer, same thing. And the decomposer, same thing. So, excuse me, that leads us to believe that cellular respiration takes place in all of the organisms in an ecosystem. And regardless of which organism it is, cellular respiration occurs in it's the same process in all of those organisms. So I want you guys to consider, though, what was different about I'm sorry. I don't want that one. I want this one. So I want you to think about how the cells shown in the sim, remember that's a model, and models, scientists use models, but they're not always 100% right. It's a model. It's meant to show what something that's too small to be seen with the naked eye. It's meant to show what that's like, and a lot of times there's some limitations. So what's the limitation here? And what's the limitation here? I'm going to give you guys a second to kind of think about that. How are the cells shown in the sim and in the diagram similar, and how are they different? Well, if we take a look at the sim, obviously the cell here, the mitochondria, this is the cell. If you kind of look at it, it's this round circle right here. And we've got this little structure, organelle, called the mitochondria. And what's taking place in the mitochondria is cellular respiration, and it's moving. The parts are moving. And so the great thing about that is it really helps you understand and model the process and how things go in and out. So we say what the mitochondria takes in and what the mitochondria gives off. That's really easy for us to see. If we compare that to this model, obviously these pieces don't move, but we can identify that we still have glucose and oxygen going in, and energy, carbon dioxide, and water coming out. And by the way, did you guys catch that? Look at, in this model, it shows energy being given off. Whereas in the model in the sim, there is no energy. So those are the big ways that they're similar and how they're different. They're both showing the same thing. And they're both great for you guys to consider when you're trying to remember how cellular respiration is different than photosynthesis. But just bear in mind, unfortunately, the sim does not show that energy is released at all. All right, let's go to activity 2. Now we're in screen number 3. So this should be populated. This was your, what am I trying to say? Your warm-up. And it's going to populate with your original answer. I want you now to revise your answer to the warm-up question. I want you to include a couple things if you didn't. Number 1, think about where this cellular respiration takes place in the ecosystem. What organisms does cellular respiration take place? Make sure you answer that. And number 2, I want you to really consider what is happening, what the mitochondria takes in and what it gives off. Double check your answer, revise if necessary, and then resubmit. During cellular respiration, atoms rearrange but don't appear or disappear. This is something that we didn't really talk about with photosynthesis, but I'm glad that Amplify is bringing this up. Both photosynthesis and cellular respiration are chemical reactions. And if you guys remember, in our unit for chemical reactions, we had a law of conservation of matter that says that matter cannot be created or destroyed. So however many reactants I have, however many molecules of carbon or oxygen or hydrogen or whatever I have on the reactant side, on the left side of the arrow, I have to have exactly the same number on the right side of the arrow. We can't have atoms. I think that was one of your key concepts. Atoms are never created or destroyed. They don't just disappear. So all of the same atoms, if you would go through and count the number of carbons over here on the reactant side, if you look at the product side, I'm going to have the exact same. There were 6 over there. And if I would go through and I would count all the number of oxygen molecules, the red molecules, and then count them over here, it's going to be the same. And then obviously the same with the hydrogen. Whatever is over here is going to be over here. Remember, in a chemical reaction, the atoms, the molecules, and the atoms that are in those molecules, they just separate, rearrange, and then form new arrangements or new molecules. So we've got another vocabulary word, cellular respiration. That's the chemical reaction between oxygen and glucose that releases energy into cells. All right, guys, we're still in activity 2, but now we're on screen number 5. And there's something that they want you to kind of consider. Photosynthesis and cellular respiration are different because they've got different reactants and different products, right? It's the opposite. But there might be one other way that they're different. We know that photosynthesis requires sunlight. So next, you're going to use the sim to investigate whether cellular respiration also requires sunlight. So let's go to the sim. You're going to observe which parts of the ecosystem perform cellular respiration. Hint, hint, it's all 4 of these. And then you're going to turn off the sunlight to see if cellular respiration changes or if it affects cellular respiration at all in any of these organisms. So let's do that real quick. Jump over to your sim. I'm going to reset mine. I don't think it'll really matter if I reset it, but I'm going to. So I'm going to reset it. Again, I'm going to look at my producer. Yep, there's photosynthesis occurring. More importantly, we're looking at cellular respiration, which takes place in the mitochondria. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of that. I'm going to take my sunlight and I'm going to decrease it to there's no sun at all. And I'm going to go into my producer. And I want you guys to look at cellular respiration only. We're not looking at photosynthesis, which, by the way, is not happening because there is no sun, no energy from the sun. But is cellular respiration still occurring? Do we have the same input and output? Okay, I'm going to just let you guys think about that for a second. Now, you do this. Go to your consumer, secondary consumer, and decomposer. You don't have to spend a whole lot of time in there, but just click on there and see if cellular respiration changes for any of those. So again, I know that it said to work with a partner, but I'm going to have you guys work on your own. You observe this sim to see whether cellular respiration requires sunlight. I want you guys to, now that you've seen it, you've made your observations. Notice I'm not giving you answers because I really want you to do this. I want you to choose which parts of an ecosystem perform cellular respiration, and you can choose all the answers you think are correct. So go ahead and do that now. And then answer this question: does the amount of sunlight affect which parts of an ecosystem perform cellular respiration? So you'll just click yes or no, and then go ahead and turn that in. All right. Photosynthesis and cellular respiration are similar and different in several important ways. Both processes take place inside cells, but photosynthesis only happens in producers, while cellular respiration happens in all organisms. Okay, guys, we're going to do our last activity for today. It's activity number 3, and this is a modeling activity. You're going to see that this, what we're going to do with the modeling is very similar to what we did with photosynthesis on last Friday, and I'll explain that. But right now, you're going to make a model showing the answer to our question. Remember, our question is, how do organisms give off carbon dioxide? Model that giving off of carbon dioxide. So you're going to make a model that shows which organisms give off carbon dioxide and how this happens. And then you'll explain how your model answers the investigation question. Now, this may take you 5 minutes to do, and it may take you 15 minutes to do. Let's go ahead and go into the modeling activity. I want to show you. So we're going to just click right here. First of all, before you do that, let's take a look at your screen for activity 3. You're going to see once you make that modeling tool, it'll repopulate right here. And then you're going to come down here in this box and you're going to explain how your model answers the investigation question. Remember, the investigation question is, how does carbon dioxide, how is it given off during cellular respiration? So click on your modeling tool. You're going to see that this modeling tool is different than the one that we had for photosynthesis. First of all, we have a different goal. The goal says, show where carbon dioxide in the air comes from. So you'll see that it's also pre-populated with air in the abiotic matter. And I also already have carbon dioxide. Do not change this at all. We don't need to change anything about this. All I want you guys to do is, first of all, decide which of these are involved in cellular respiration. Hint, hint, it's all of them. So you're going to grab this, whoopsie, and then bring over each one. Okay. And since cellular respiration does not take place in dead matter, do not use that. We're not using water. And depending on what you found earlier, you can decide whether or not you're going to use the sun. If you're unsure about whether you're using the sun, go back to, the 5th screen and decide, did you see that? Did it matter whether the sun was there, whether cellular respiration occurred? Okay. So then you have to go through and you have to decide what process we're doing. So grab a process box and then come up and with your pencil, tell me which process you're modeling, what the input was, and what the output was. Okay, think about your model that you saw in the sim. Think about the model that you saw that you answered the question about in the warm-up activity. Refer back to those if you need to, but make sure that you know the input and the output. Once you're done with that for the producer, close that out, and then you should have one other thing that you're putting in here that the producer has. And then you need to show me movement. Be very careful about the arrow that you select, because for this one, you're not going to select all 3 of them. I'm not going to tell you how many arrows you're going to use, but remember, here's your goal. Show where carbon dioxide in the air comes from. I'm purposely allowing you guys to make this model just to see where your thoughts are. We may need to go back and revise them, and that's okay. Just do your very best and turn them in. Once you're finished with this modeling tool, make sure that you hand in and then come back here to the curriculum. And you may have to refresh this, but this will populate. And then down here, you're going to answer how the model explains or answers the investigation question. And the investigation question, again, is how does carbon dioxide, how do organisms, oh golly, what was it again? I forgot. Hang on. Oh, here it is. How do organisms give off carbon dioxide? Okay. Once you're finished with that, you guys, you're done for the day. There is an activity 5. What's activity 4? I think I skipped activity 4. I didn't want to do it. So activity 5 is homework. You guys can certainly do that if you feel like you need a little bit more, practice. There's a short article, and then there's an investigation for the sim. to investigate photosynthesis and cellular respiration just in producers. If you guys have a whole lot of time and you are not managing your time very well, I'm going to let my sub know that I have this homework activity out for you guys, and then I've given it to you if you need to do it. But if you guys can take care of yourself, if you've got extra time in class, use it to study. Study your vocab, study your key concepts so that you are ready to go for that end of the unit test next Friday. Okay? If you cannot handle yourselves, I'm going to tell her to tell you guys to do activity 5 for homework and then to let me know so I can make sure and put something in the grade book so that you guys have to actually submit that. So please monitor yourself. You guys can do this, okay? I don't want to use homework as a punishment. And like I said, if you feel like you're interested and you want to learn more about the silkworm, this is actually kind of an interesting article, not super long at all. So it's there if you want it. Hopefully you guys aren't mismanaging your time, but just know that it's there. All right, you guys, that's all I have for you today. I'll be back on Thursday. So if you've got any questions before that, please email me. Otherwise, I'll see you on Friday or Thursday. See you later.